Okay, I think the live stream is started.
Yeah, I also got the notification.
Yeah, can see it. Okay, so whoever is not able to join live and just watch the recording or participates in real time in the live stream, I'm only watching the YouTube chat, folks. So if you have any questions, comments, just please put the comments, questions in the chat on live stream on YouTube or just join the meeting. So just first things first, the meeting is about the cheat sheet poster. It's an old idea um, that was suggested by Sergio some time ago to provide some kind of cheat sheet because many projects have cheat sheets, Docker and others. So we basically will experiment now if it's possible with the spec. And that's the point of this live stream. So Maya that will work on the poster will have me for 1 hour. So we like to brainstorm all the different ideas for what we could have in the cheat sheet. So thanks, Maya, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So before we do anything, maybe Maya, you have something like that you'd like to say, or
Nothing really. I'm just happy working on this and learning more about Async API spec.
okay. So let me share my screen. Um, desktop one. Please confirm if you can see
Yeah,
the Visual Studio Code.
yes.
Okay, perfect. Um, so the poster. We agreed that we'll, as I said, like experiment and try to do the poster.
Hold on. I'm seeing YouTube.
Oh, um, how about now? Can you see GitHub?
It's just starting. Not yet.
No, it's not. It's wrong screen. What? Wait. Uh, no. 3, 2. Okay. Now it has to be the one.
Yeah, YouTube.
Okay. Can
Sorry, YouTube.
GitHub. Okay. Okay, perfect. Because I was worried. What? YouTube again.
Sorry.
Okay. So we basically agreed to narrow the scope and just forget about async API tools that we have that we could promote some commands to do async API validate or whatever. So we focus just on the spec itself. And yeah, so let me, because we are purely improvising here. So let me first go to some old workshop that I created. And in this workshop, I had some like Damn it, I still have to update it for V3. But some of the things are the same in V2 and V3. So let's see. What did I promote the most? Okay. Uh-huh. This is no longer in V3. Flexibility. Okay. So yeah, so one of the things we have to address in the cheat sheet that um async API is protocol agnostic, which basically means it's let me show you by showing the opposite the geez, not this one. This one. Uh, by showing the opposite of async API, which is Open API.
Okay.
So, for example, Open API was long before async API, but you can see it's also YAML like async API. But there's one thing that people got used to with it is, for example, this. So this simple thing as option to specify that it's get or put or post, these things that are inside Open API, in the core of Open API, these names come directly from HTTP protocol. So you could say Open API is not protocol agnostic because it's purely for HTTP protocol. Um, but things like this do not happen in async API. Async API, because in event-driven architectures, there are so many different protocols. We try to separate protocol specific information from the core spec. And that's called bindings. So I guess, I mean, you did some research, but I think it would be first useful to somehow in the poster show that it's or maybe bindings should separate. So it's protocol agnostic. So it's like supports any protocol like MQTT, Kafka, MQP, just to name few. Okay. And then bindings is one of the features that we should have in the poster that address this functionality. So that we can be protocol agnostic, but still we can provide some protocol specific information in the spec. And for that, I think we have some good examples thanks to Docs contributors. So let's go to Docs. I think we could try to grab it from there. And Maya, feel free to like stop me anywhere whenever you're confused by my explanation. I'm happy to
All right.
explain again. So Kafka bindings. I think that's the one. Oh yeah. Yeah. So one thing is that we in case of bindings, we can, for example, first explain that they are available in server object server channel objects. Um, and I think like um, you'll see on your own how much space you're gonna have in the poster.
Mm-hmm.
So might be that the best would be to just grab one of these examples. Um,
Okay.
so for example, which one is I think this is nice. So, but it would be, I think the best would be, of course, we have all this for different bindings in the poster because they represent examples for server binding, channel binding, operation binding, and message
Operation
binding.
online. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you. So the async API protocol agnostic is going to be like the let's say the overview of the poster, right? So the binding are the features. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, so that's something that will be, as you said, like somewhere at the top of the poster, and
Mm-hmm.
then binding is just one of the features. Yes.
Mm. Okay.
Um,
Mm.
no. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, and when you put in the poster, for example, this example,
Mm-hmm.
um, this part should be somehow highlighted. So so the viewer um knows
The
that
binding and poster.
that's the core. Actually, that's the core. So that there are some parts that are core of
Mm-hmm.
async API document, and bindings are something like additional, like you can plug in Kafka specific information in the
Okay.
async API document. Um, and I put this for reference so you have it.
Thank you.
Um, okay, so that would be um, features, I guess. Um, Features, finding. Mhm. Okay, let me save it uh, and then just edit. Okay, so that would be one thing, mm, the bindings. Now going back to this, let's say the top of the poster. So protocol agnostic is one thing, but we should also, but that's like in visual way. Again, I'm not the best person uh to suggest how it should be visually shown, but yeah, let me show you what I basically mean. Where's this official definition? Yeah, exactly. That's something that changed in V3. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I honestly have no idea how to show it. So it basically like it's all about the flexibility of what async API document can be used for, because from the docs perspective, like in the simplest concept of um, server, I think we're gonna have it. Yeah. So in this, like the simplest example, you have a producer, so like an application that has like sends some messages to channels in the broker. And you have another service, service one and service two, that is consuming this async API documents. So in V2, we were saying that you can use async API to describe consumer two, consumer one, and you can also use async API to describe producer. But in async API v3, we don't tell you what you should use it for. If you are able, like you don't have hundreds of thousands of channels, you can use it as well for describing the communication in the broker. Like, so basically a
Okay.
list of what list of channels the broker has. But how to visually represent it, I have no
Is there
clue.
like a definition for that in V3?
Yeah, the only definition is here in the official spec, but again, it's very very, I don't know, like it's very I don't even know the English word, how what very it is, but like basically, I think I think like the simple this is actually complicated. Um, yeah, so this is even simpler view. So you have a producer, and you don't like um you don't even have to in your diagram for the poster, you don't even have to say message one, message one. It's as simple as producer, arrow pointing to the broker, and arrow from the broker pointing to the consumer. That's enough for the visualization.
Okay.
And then somehow in this visualization, you have to make it clear that every single part of the diagram can be
Mm-hmm.
documented with async API, can be described with async API, not documented.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, from my perspective, I can only give you a hint, like somehow the only show that async API document can be used to any. Um, okay. Then the next one, yeah, this one is super nice. Multiple schema format support. Um, um, so we can again use docs. These Kafka documents are super helpful. Um, so for example, in this document, you have really nice example of a document where a basic schema is used. So just to give you some background, although I think you worked, didn't you work on some
Sierra.
already on some task related to schema visualization representation, or no, it was someone else probably. Do you
I, I
so
worked on CLI, not schema.
Oh yeah, okay, CLI. Okay, so that's different. Okay, so so basically, what you can see here in async API document is this is a async API schema.
Okay.
which is a standard that is based on JSON schema that you can use to provide detailed information about what your message contains.
Mm.
Um, so for example, in this case, the message contains, the message is an object, and it contains two properties, user ID and
Okay.
user email. And you can specify that it's string or this is an integer. You could also say that something is Boolean, and you can provide description. And it's very useful for anyone to use schemas to describe the messages, because then later on, because it's machine readable, they can easily validate the messages in real time, in the runtime, as well. And in Async API, this is the default. So you don't specify anything, you just provide the schema. And by default,
Okay.
we assume you want to describe your schema with Async API schema. Now, again, looking from the spec perspective, um, even in the spec, we call it multi-format schema. So you can also call it in the poster as multi-format schema, I guess. Hmm. Um, and going back to spec, um, where does it say?
Is there like a visual example for that?
No, that's the problem
Okay.
with visual teaching
Mhm.
here. We're not good at it. um, but I'll let me maybe let's at least visually try to do it this way. So by default is schema. Now technically we call it it's a superset of JSON schema. Now superset of JSON schema, which it basically means that Async API is a superset of JSON schema, which means Async API schema is the same as JSON schema plus some additional features.
Mm.
Okay. Um, and now visually, I don't know how to really represent it best. If we say that Async API is the same as JSON schema, so I don't know if it's a mathematical, maybe in the mathematical way we can do it like a circle, that
Mm-hmm.
JSON schema is a circle and Async API is the same circle but a bit larger, or there's a bubble on the circle. I don't know how to do it, but basically it's like
I'll come up with something.
yeah,
Sorry.
but it's just to but it's super important to basically realize that Async API is basically the same as JSON schema. Like we use the same actually tools
Mm.
to validate, etc., that normally we would use for JSON schema version 7 or draft 7. Um, but but there are like 2 or 3 properties more that we add to existing JSON schema draft 7. That's the name. So that's if it comes to the, but default is async API schema. So
Okay.
default would be, let's go back to Kafka tutorial. Okay, where is it? Yeah. Or even yeah, let's do it this way. No, still YAML. Better if it's gonna be component schemas, user sign up. Let me quickly confirm. Because I have a repo with one more example. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, so this is an example of this default
Okay.
schema, which is basically async API schema, which is superset of JSON schema. Now, that's the default. But because we have this feature of multi-schema format, you can use basically whatever you want. So, and that's, for example, the example. Let's go back here. So this is an example. So I'm not sure if you see the difference. So the difference here is that by default, you just do component schemas, name of the schema, and then you just put the description of the message,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't specify what schema format you follow. So by default, we think it's async API schema.
Okay.
Now, but you can say, you can also have structure like this. So you see some additional fields that I normally don't use here. So schema format are key here, and schema. So these ones should be kind of highlighted in the diagram. And you see that by schema format, you specify that, oh, my schema is actually not async API schema, it's actually Avro.
Mm.
And then I have the Avro schema
Okay.
provided. So you see it's a bit different comparing to this. Here you have like type object properties, and here you have different type. So it's basically different standard than async API schema or JSON schema. It's Avro. And so provide Avro example. I think it's the most common. And we can also provide a a bit different example, which is protobuf. Um, let's quickly check. Let's check something actually. I'm not I'm not 100% sure if it's even technically possible, but let's do real-time ChatGPT. Let's see if it can handle that. Oh, nice. Okay, so in theory, we can do this. And we just do copy, paste, and schema. We just, we would have to do schema this. Let's see how
Why
it
are we
goes.
having a third example?
It's because there are some limits that we have to somehow highlight if it comes to schema. So the thing
Mm-hmm.
is that oh, and maybe that's something a core that we actually something that I assume everybody know, but maybe we should have it explicitly also shown at the top that async API can be represented as YAML or JSON. And because of this simple thing that it's a JSON,
Mm-hmm.
the problem is that we cannot um, the in case of protobuf, the way you represent the protobuf,
Mm-hmm.
as you can see, it is not JSON.
Yeah.
So for example, like, I mean, I know that here I show YAML, but it's basically let's assume it's JSON. So for example, Avro, it's even though it's totally different schema format and from JSON schema, it's represented as JSON. So users can just basically put the Avro schema inside the schema field, and there will be no errors. It's still valid JSON document. But sometimes there are schemas like protobuf or XSD that are not JSON. They're just some string. So we need to show this example and somehow explain that in some cases, if the schema format can be represented as JSON, it can be normally included in the document. But sometimes the schema format cannot be represented as JSON, like in case of protobuf, and it has to be the format has to be you see that's the core here. So it has to be injected or placed inside the YAML as a string. And that's what this pipe here, this pipe sign means that this block of text is basically a string, while without the pipe here, this is basically YAML or JSON later on. So that's why we need, in this case, these two examples to show some limits, basically. And yeah, that would be it with schema formats. And yeah, and somehow we need to explain in the poster make it clear that basically this. Okay, what else was I talking? Oh yeah, extensibility. So yeah, we have this so basically async API specification, in the end, async API specification is just a markdown file where we write the whole definition, like how people can describe their interfaces with async API. And the async API specification basically defines fields like info, define fields like async API. Actually, let's load something that is actually working. Oh yeah. Okay, so like basically async API, it's a defined word by async API spec maintainers, the same info and all the others. But sometimes companies have needs to use some specific fields, like I think Walmart had it, X. Okay, let's call it timestamp. Let's say some company, they need in async API document some additional metadata, some additional information.
Could you zoom in a little bit?
Oh yeah, sorry. So they need to be able to specify it inside spec. Sometimes these companies use the name of the company to specify that it's their own extension, but that's not necessary. So, and why X dash? Because if I wouldn't do X dash, then it means my async API document is not valid, because async API document, async API specification actually, do not allow a timestamp field in async API document at the root of the async API document. So if somebody wants to extend the definition of their API with some additional fields in async API documents, all those additional fields have to have X dash. And let's see if we have some nice extending spec. Oh yeah, I think this one is pretty simple and pretty basic.
Yeah.
think by the way, I think I accepted. Kaushik, hey man, if you have any questions, I see you're in the call. Feel free to unmute anytime. So yeah, extensions are a way to extend standard Async API spec with additional fields. Yeah. So we can basically see it here. Like, if I would copy that in the studio, it works, right? But then it works only because the LinkedIn is with X dash, because normally we don't have anything like that. You cannot specify LinkedIn name of the LinkedIn account of the owner of the API. So if somebody would like to provide such LinkedIn information, they would get an error. So X dash is the way to basically specify some additional things in the in Async API documents. Traits and sharing. Oh yeah. Reusability. Something that we can call reusability. Is basically $ref, which means that looking on this Async API document, like the best actually Async API document in this, like, although I'm of course probably opinionated, but I would, if I would use Async API in production, I would split every single document like this. So I would have schema, just a simple schema separately. Message I would have separately, and the schema I would basically use $ref. Okay, so I would have first my schema in a separate as a separate object. Then whenever I have some additional information for the message and I have to specify the payload, I would just use this $ref to point to it. Because as you can see, we use it everywhere we can to basically follow this standard approach that people call dry, right? Don't repeat yourself. Because as long as every time you repeat yourself, long-term maintenance of whatever you created is a hell, because it's normal that in the future you forget to update the same information in two different places. So it's always better to keep information in one place and then share it, reuse it. And that's the $ref. That's what I mean by reusability. And reusability can be done in multiple ways. So usability can be inside Async API document. So like this. Let's first save. Okay. $ref, reusability $ref.
Oh, so a feature is reusability with the $ref. Another one is reusability inside Async API document.
Sorry, did you ask a question or?
I was trying to validate something. I said a feature is reusability with the dollar ref. Another one is reusability inside async API
No,
documents, right?
no. So dollar ref, maybe let's remove it. So basically reusability there are three different ways for reusability. The
Mm-hmm.
first one is you can do reusability inside a single async API document. So you have, for example, here you have an example where in the same document, you have a reference that points exactly to the same document, to component section, which is this, to schema section, which is this, and to user sign up, which is this.
Okay.
So that's reusability inside single async API document. You can also have reusability pointing to a file. So this is something we have nicely in docs. Example Kafka again. Okay, so here you have it. Okay, like, oh yeah. So here you see it that that somebody can, for example, in case of the Avro, you remember the Avro schema.
Yeah.
Normally that's how you put it in single document. So we have schema format, Avro, and then you put the schema inside. But you don't have to, like, if you have it already in some file, then you don't have to copy paste from the file your schema inside async API document. You can still, let's say the same Avro represented as JSON, you can have it in a separate file called user schema.json. And then whenever you point to the schema, you see the $ref is a bit different. It's basically pointing to the file.
I see.
So um, so you can actually have exactly the same document, but schema would also be $ref, but it would be like just copy paste from the docs. Okay, so it's basically a message that inside you point to some schema you have in your async API document, but the actual schema that your async API document reference to, it's defined in a separate file. Um, so that's what I mean, that reusability is pointing to a file outside async API document. Okay. Not sure if we let's see. Let's see how it's. Let's just forget about what I just said. Not sure. Let's see. Reusability outside document pointing to URL.
Yeah.
That's also possible, and we also have nice docs example. So you can have something like this. Okay, so let's copy again the same example. And so you still see that in this single async API document, the message references the schema inside the async API document, but the schema itself reference a schema hosted in some server somewhere outside. So like in a company, multiple different teams can share the same schema hosted by some other team.
Okay, a good question.
Yeah.
So, we have one. we have the one that is referenced in a single document. We have the one reference pointing to a file.
Mm-hmm.
Can we have like the three in a place?
Can we have, sorry?
Okay. So
No,
like this third example.
no. What was your question? So can we have what?
Yeah, that was what I'm trying to
Yeah, like
explain.
so basically I'm pointing these three out because I think we should have all of them in the poster.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
like I'm trying to ask that. Okay, scroll down, please.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's possible. I'm just curious to know. You know, this example, we have a reference pointing to an async API document, like the first example that you mentioned.
This
That reference? No, no, no.
the
The one
mm,
before that one.
this one?
No, the first one.
Yeah.
This is a reference to a single async API document, right?
Yeah. It's
We have
basically
that.
the same
Okay,
async API document. It's inside. The rest is redacted basically, but this is async API document, one single async API document. Yes, like you can
okay,
see, for example, here. So we have. I just copied that. So that's a full async API document. And then you can see that this is referencing in a schema that is inside the same document. Yes. And you can experiment how to show it in the poster because like you, um, you'll see on your own which is clearer to understand because
okay,
you can have it like this and then separately like this with some explanation and then separately like this. But you can, what we sometimes do, actually, what I sometimes do is that I basically provide, um, I do some experiments like this and that. So I basically, what I do is,
that was what I was asking.
yeah, I
That
represent
was
them.
what I
So
was
like,
trying to.
yeah. So technically, it's not allowed because it's not valid document to
Mhm.
have two references. But what I
Okay,
basically do, I can actually, I have this IATA example. I was doing some research recently for IATA. So when I had a call with them and I did explanation, I of the multi-schema, I had something like this. Okay. So I had explanation, use schema format and schema like this. But you can also have using schema and then you see I'm using YAML comments. So I'm basically showing different examples that you can have a local file reference using
okay.
$ref, that you can have remote reference.
I worked in
So
studio.
so that's how I did it, but I don't know if it's a good way. So that's you're gonna see it in the poster if it's readable, if all possible examples are in one example with just
Okay.
comments, or maybe we should have separate. It's all about that's that was from the very beginning the biggest difficulty of this poster. It's because
Mm,
we're showing snippets of the async API document, which is usually multi-line, which
yeah.
takes over the poster pretty quickly if it comes to available space.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's it if it comes to reusability and trades. Oh, that's trades is the different beast. It's a different beast. Let's skip trades for now. Like we need trades, but we also have just 3 minutes of the meeting
Left. Yeah.
to be continued. And and something to understand also in the poster because we talk about core information about async API document.
Okay.
We talk about core coolest features, but what we don't talk about is the basics. Like we didn't even touch the basics. We didn't even explain what of the info. We didn't even explain what's the point of the channel. We didn't even explain what's the point of
Operations.
operation. We didn't even provide information about the reply request. So there's a lot. Um, so let's just now let's see what you can do with it. What conclusions you're gonna have from working with the poster.
Mm-hmm.
How we can represent it, if it's doable to fit in one poster, or we simply have to accept that it's multi-page poster, which I don't think it's bad if it's 2 pages. For the conferences, we can always print both sided on one card.
Mm.
Um, and then, but yeah, I guess that's anyway it. It's just 1 hour.
Thank you. Like, I love the explanation. That was really good.
Okay, cool. I also saw no comments except of hi. Sorry, folks. Hi. Um, so yeah. Try it out. Let me know. Because once you have some silver bullet how to nicely represent it in the poster, then adding this info channel, that's the easiest. Um, but these are complex. So if you handle complex stuff on one page, then we can do the basics on the other page.
Uh,
And then we have like super perfect poster that we can take to conferences and hand out to people, which would be super nice.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks to all participants. Yeah, you know where to find me and Maya. So if you have some comments, some ideas to share it in the issue that we were showing, or just DM us.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.